Someone came up to me and said, "Do you know who that is?" I was like, "I don't know, that's the guy that I talked to in the gym." And they said, "That's Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple." And I just had this, oh shit.
Building relationship with influence figures like Tim Cook requires effective networking. So how do you approach seeking help from the mentors when you have not done something significant for others yet?
So if you want to make a lot of money, if that's your goal, to build a huge business and to make a lot of wealth for yourself, creating value has to be at the core of what you are doing as a creator. It should not be a journey to making money. Mr. Beast became Mr. Beast because he loved creating videos, and he made the best videos in the world. He's a billionaire now. I don't think he cares about money. I think there are a few big mistakes that creators are making today that I see, at least as common mistakes. One of them is
Today is an extremely special day for me because I'm going to be announcing who our guest is. I mean, you all know, but let me create the drama. So I'm extremely inspired by Sahil because of the sheer amount of discipline that he has and how he works his entire life around the schedule and routine that he set for himself. He's an entrepreneur, he's an investor, and some of us may know him from his newsletter, from his threads, from his reels. And of course, we've all seen the famous cold plunge that happens at 5 a.m. and the videos that go with like ice all around. But it's truly an honor for me to welcome Sahil. So I'm just going to call him in, and if you can just cheer him on and give him a huge round of applause. Sahil Bloom.
How is the Josh? Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
My question for you would be how did you prioritize your entire life into this journey? Like, how did you prioritize your relationship over your work? And when it comes to, maybe mental health, physical health, how did you manage to, maintain all of that into this span of time, like throughout this span of time?
This is a great question. So one of the biggest challenges for all of us is time. You don't have time to do everything that you want to do at all points in time in your life, and your life has seasons. So there are going to be points in time during your life, especially during your younger years, where you may want to prioritize your career. You may want to prioritize building financial independence during those years. And then there are going to be times later in your life when you want to prioritize your relationship with your children or your relationship with your parents, all of these different considerations. So that concept of seasons for me has been really a key part of how I've thought about prioritization, because it gives you the freedom and the power to choose a few things that you're going to focus on without allowing the other areas of your life to atrophy, if you will. So what I've always thought is, during my 20s, as an example, I wanted to prioritize building my career, building financial independence, really focusing on growing and compounding both my wealth and my knowledge, the base of those insights and earned wisdom. But I didn't want my relationships to all of a sudden just fall by the wayside. And so what I did was I figured out what are the 2 to 3 people, or the 5 people maybe in my life, that I really want to make sure that those relationships continue to thrive and continue to flourish and don't just fall off the map. But say no to the other things that are around that. So it's not going to be the extraordinary social life during those years because I simply don't have time. I have to be focusing on this one thing that I'm trying to prioritize, and just allow myself the freedom to focus on these few true core deep relationships during that period. So what I would encourage anyone to think about here is, during a period of your life, what is that focus of that season that you're currently in? Is it your financial independence and your growth in your career? Well, if so, that's fantastic. Focus on that thing, but then figure out the 2 to 3 high leverage ways that you can continue to build those other areas of your life without allowing them to completely fall off. And health, by the way, is a really important one. During your 20s, 30s, and 40s, you still need to do something for your health. But you may be working really hard, you may be stressed because you have young children and a relationship that you need to be building, but you can't allow your health to completely fall. And so finding the way to have that 20 to 30 minutes that you can carve out for yourself every day for your mental and physical health is a really important one, to make sure that you have room for that in your life. Hopefully that answers your question.
So a lot of personality is built in childhood, and a lot of things happen there. So can you help us a little bit more about what was your childhood like? How did your parents, help you decide some life choices, and how did it shape your career probably today?
I need to answer this question with the context that my two parents are sitting here in the front row, right in front of me as well. So I don't know if I'm going to answer honestly or no. My parents, my mother's of Indian origin, born and raised in Bangalore, India, and my father's American. I would say that a lot of you will probably resonate with this. Parents with really high expectations. And Indian culture in general, I think, is known for having parents with very, very high expectations. What I always found was that my parents paired high expectations with high support. And the challenge I find with high expectations is when there's high expectations but no support. And that goes for any relationship, a parental relationship in particular, but also in a spousal relationship, romantic relationships. If someone has high expectations for you, but they're not supporting you, they're not providing the love and support that you need, that's a big issue. That's a tension that exists. My parents always paired the belief in me and the high expectations that they held for my sister and I with the willingness to be there and support and provide the love and provide the resources to go and pursue those things. There's an American football coach named Nick Saban, who's really considered maybe one of the most legendary sports coaches in American history, probably in the world. And he has this concept called the capability gap, which is the idea that there's a gap between your potential and between what you're delivering against today. Most of us internally in our own minds think we have really limited potential. We have those self-limiting beliefs, and we hold ourselves back in the context of what our potential is. And we think we're actually delivering quite well. So we're underestimating our potential and overestimating our delivery, like how we're actually showing up. My view is that a great parent helps you see your true potential. They help you think bigger about what you're capable of doing, and then also tells you the truth and holds you to account on how you're not delivering at the level that you could be. I felt like my parents did that in my childhood. I was sort of the ne'er-do-well son relative to my sister, who was very high achieving academically, which, as all my Indian brethren know, is like the holy grail for an Indian parent, like the straight A student, and she got into the great college. And I was playing baseball. I was like going out playing ball. It didn't really make sense. I wasn't fitting the pattern. And now looking back on it, I can really appreciate that the reason my parents were hard on me and were giving me guidance along the way was that they saw that my potential was so much greater than I understood at the time, and that I wasn't delivering against it at my capability level that I could have been. And so that constant push that you are capable of more than you realize, and all of you are. Every single person in this room, every single person listening to this is capable of so much more than you realize. And the only way that you understand that is by getting around people who will tell you that, by getting around people who will encourage you to think bigger, to have bigger dreams, to get in big spaces where you can open up and push yourself beyond anything in your wildest imagination. And so I think the role of parents, and for myself now as a parent to a young son, is to do just that. It's to make sure that he understands his unlimited potential and make sure that he knows when he's not delivering against that, when he's capable of much more than what he's actually doing.
Hello, Sahil. I'm Aditya. Moving on from the relationship stuff, I will talk about business. So my question is, what are the biggest mistake creators are making in monetizing their audience, and what strategies you can provide to help them?
I think there are a few big mistakes that creators are making today that I see, at least as common mistakes. One of them is trying to harvest value too soon in the journey of being a business. If anyone has ever seen the movie The Social Network, it's about the rise of Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook. There's this whole scene early on where his partner Eduardo Saverin is saying, okay, we need to monetize now. We need to do that. We need to start selling ads. And Mark Zuckerberg has this response that he's saying, we don't even know what this is yet. How can we monetize? How can we sell ads? We don't know what it is yet. What it is cool. And so he keeps saying that, like, we can't monetize before we know what we're actually building. And I think for creators, there's really something to that, that what you're building is this unbelievable distribution engine. You're building this connection with an audience. You're building this depth of contact, these ripples that you're creating in the world. And you haven't figured out yet what the right way is to actually turn that into a business. There's all the obvious ways where people will go sell brand deals and do the, little product things or the courses, but it may not be the obvious way that is the best way for you as a creator. It could be the totally non-obvious way. I mean, for me, I've gone and built businesses alongside my creator ecosystem. So I haven't done the courses. I haven't done the product launches. I've had businesses that sit sort of adjacent or alongside. And the reason I was able to do that was because I took time to really think about what was I building and what were the best ways to actually create and then capture value in that journey. So I think harvesting too soon and also just defaulting into the obvious ways of monetizing is a mistake that a lot of creators are making. The second piece there, which I sort of alluded to, is creating value has to be at the core of what you are doing as a creator. It should not be a journey to making money. The best creators in the world created value with no expectation of return for a long period of time. They did not go into it thinking it was a business. Mr. Beast became Mr. Beast because he loved creating videos, and he made the best videos in the world. He's a billionaire now. I don't think he cares about money. He cares about making incredible content that impacts people all over the world. When you have that at the core of what you're trying to do, you're more authentic, you're more raw and real, and the audience connects with that. And when you do that, that is when you receive the greatest bounties in life and the greatest value in return. Hopefully that helps.
Like you said, like you build adjacent businesses. So can you elaborate that part, like how you thought about, rather than, because you might have 100 mails of people telling you that let's collaborate on this. Can you market our product? You rejected them and you told let's think on this. Like how did that happen?
Yeah. So I'm not sure how many people are familiar with the story of Amazon, but obviously you know what Amazon is. Jeff Bezos founded Amazon originally as an online bookstore. He built this enormous e-commerce business, and in order to enable the e-commerce business to work, on the back end of it, they had to build this incredible, huge, complex set of servers and sort of like a whole data stack and infrastructure and compute power that would power the front end, which was the e-commerce engine. And what they realized was that this enormous cost center of the business could actually be turned into a profit center. So all of the money they were spending on these servers and on the compute power could be rented out to startups that actually needed servers and compute power. So they took a cost center and turned it into a profit center, which is today Amazon Web Services, which is a $100 billion business. It's an enormous business. It would be in the Fortune 100 largest companies in the world, but it exists within Amazon. I took that exact same mentality of turning cost centers into profit centers into how I approached what I was building as a business. So rather than doing the few $1,000 brand deal for some brand to tell me to market their flat tummy tea or whatever the latest thing was that they wanted me to sell, I could rather look at what I was spending money on and think about how I could partner with someone to build those businesses. As an example, I was spending tons of money on building websites and design and brands for these different companies I was involved in or different startups that I had invested in. I was spending money on that every single month. So why not own and start a design and branding agency that actually built those things? So rather than spending $10,000 a month, now I'm making $20,000 a month in profit on a business that I've actually started, turning cost centers into profit centers. The broader insight there is just brainstorming what are the non-obvious ways to make money that are different than what everyone else is doing. It's like the idea of when everyone's playing checkers, how can I play chess?
Hi, Sahil. So my question is for all the Indian entrepreneurs, or maybe anyone who wants to establish any kind of business or find the solution for the Indian ecosystem. So what are the what advice would you offer to avoid any kind of pitfalls?
I think the biggest advice that I would have for any entrepreneur is what I said earlier, which is focus on how you can create enormous value for the ecosystem that you want to serve. And what I mean by that is really just think about in an economy, look at all of the people that have made $100 million, $1 billion, $100 billion. They've done that because they've created 10x, 100x, 1000x as much value for the people that they've served. And they have captured a small portion of that. So if you want to make a lot of money, if that's your goal, to build a huge business and to make a lot of wealth for yourself, the only way to do that is to go and create enormous amounts of value for an ecosystem and for the people. In India in particular today, there is an enormous booming young demographic that is going to be increasingly middle class, increasingly have disposable income, increasingly be interested in these rising global trends around technology, around health and wellness. All of these incredible things are happening in this country, and those people need to be served. I would personally look to a lot of the things that have happened in the United States and in Europe over the last 10 or 15 years, because I think a lot of the trends around wellness, a lot of the trends around taking care of your entire self, mentally and physically, you're starting to see in India. People are really starting to take care of their health and fitness here, take care of their mental health. I keep getting approached by people saying they're doing cold plunges now, which is awesome. So I think that there is a huge, huge opportunity there. But the number one pitfall is focusing too much on the transactional side and not enough on just how to create value for the people that you encounter. The one other thing that does exist as an opportunity here is geographic arbitrage. There's much lower wages here and opportunities to build businesses that are based and run out of India, but are serving customers that are paying in dollars or paying in euros, especially services-based businesses that I've seen a lot of, that you can earn money in a US dollar economy and be paying wages in India and really harvest pretty significant gains as a result.
Hi Sahil, my name is Ganesh. So building relationship with influence figures like Tim Cook requires effective networking. So how do you approach building relationships and seeking help from the mentors when you have not done something significant for others yet?
Yeah. So the story of how I met Tim Cook is a funny one, which is a perfect example of what you're saying, which is I was, 23 years old, and I had just started my career. I'd just taken my first job. I've always been into health and fitness, and so I knew that I wanted to go to the gym, even though I was starting this job where I was going to be working 80, 90, 100 hours a week. The only way I was going to be able to do that was if I got to the gym right when it opened, first thing in the morning, which was at 4:45 in the morning, so that I could get to the office by 6:30 and have my whole day, because then I knew the day might go to hell. So every single day I'd show up at the gym at 4:45. And at that time of morning, there's very few people that are willing to show up. And there was a group of about 5 or 10 people that you'd see every single morning there. And I would talk to all of them because you're just there. There's a camaraderie that's built. And after about 6 months, I was talking to this one gentleman, and I sort of walked away, and someone came up to me and said, "Do you know who that is?" I was like, "I don't know, that's the guy that I talked to in the gym." And they said, "That's Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple." And I just had this, oh shit, excuse my language, moment of like, I've been talking to this guy, probably saying nonsense here, like talking about squat form or so in the gym every morning. He's like CEO of one of the biggest companies in the world. And so then I realized, and I spoke to him, and I asked if he'd be willing to get breakfast, and so I could, learn about career and any of the insights that he might have. And it became the start of an incredible relationship and mentorship. But it was built on the foundation of 6 months of genuine interactions, of me having no idea who he was, that he was this, amazing, incredible operator and figure. I think if I had known, my interactions with him would have been very different. I would have been nervous. I would have been tentative. I wouldn't have wanted to bother him or talk to him because I had nothing to offer. I was brand new in my career. There wasn't some value that I could provide to him. I didn't know anything about technology. But in hindsight, that was actually a feature of our interaction. It was because it came from a genuine place of interest in another human being. What you find time and time again with people in high places is that they have very few real friends. And it is almost impossible for them to meet someone who doesn't want something in return, who isn't just looking for like a transaction. Oh, invest in my company. And as he was there longer and as he became a more prominent CEO, every single morning someone was just coming up to him the first time they would meet him, and they'd walk in and say like, oh, will you invest in my startup? Or, oh, I want a job at Apple. It was just constant. And those people close off as a result. So if you can approach interactions with those people with true, just genuine interest in getting to know someone and getting to share your life, that is the only way that those kind of relationships are built. And it's why I think that networking in the traditional sense is dead. Networking is like a dated concept of going around and handing out tons of business cards at an event. No deep relationships have ever been built on that type of transactional nature. The only real relationships are built through genuine sharing and genuine vulnerability. I mean, I distinctly remember the first time I had breakfast with Tim, sharing a story about my family and having like tearing up while I was having a conversation with him. You can't fake that, right? Like that relationship and the vulnerability that you share in meeting someone is the foundation for depth that actually gets created over periods of time. There was never a transaction. I never was asking for a job at Apple. I didn't actually, I don't know, in the 10 years that I've known him, I don't know that I've ever asked more than like 2 or 3 questions about Apple, because I don't really care. I'm not super into technology. I didn't want a job there. I wasn't looking for him to invest in my company. I just wanted to get to know him, and I thought he had amazing stories and insights, and he's constantly meeting with incredible smart people, and I wanted to learn about them. There was just like a true, genuine foundation to it that ran through all of our interactions as a result. So that is really the core of my advice, which is to approach networking as much more about building genuine long-term relationships, because that's where the best value ends up being.
Like, because you've had so many experiences in various domains, be it content, be it startup or entrepreneurship. um, from my perspective, I think when there's a lot of things going on, that also at the same time brings you a lot of knowledge, but also at the same time brings you a lot of confusion as to where this is heading. And hence the concept of ikigai, the Japanese concept, where it's a union of these 4 things: what you love, what you're good at, what helps the society, and makes you earn money. Uh, Having experienced the life that you had right now, have you found your ikigai, or do you feel you're a bit close to it, or is it still in the gray area, on your personal take?
I think we're all in a perpetual process of figuring it out. I don't think you ever figure it out. It's not an end state. No one I've ever met in my entire life, as successful or unsuccessful as they are, no one feels like they've figured it all out. Tim Cook, I mean, he has years beyond when he's going to be Apple CEO. He's eventually going to step down and have to do something else with his life that brings him meaning. And he doesn't know what that is, because you never quite figure it out. You don't know what you want to be when you grow up. Not a single person in this room knows exactly what they want to be when they grow up. We all have that uncertainty. And so I never want to fall into the trap of thinking that I'm one day going to feel like, oh, okay, I've figured it out, everything, I've made it. Because the second you feel that way is usually the second that you get punched in the face, that something comes out of nowhere that you weren't expecting and you get hit. I want to constantly feel like I'm on the right trajectory, that I'm learning more about myself, that I'm spending time with great people. If that is on like an upward sloping path, then I'm happy. I definitely feel like that has been the case over the last few years. And the heart of that for me, which I imagine people will resonate with, always comes back to people. There's this whole idea of who, not how. And my new philosophy on life is I'm not going to focus on the journey. I'm not going to focus on the destination. I'm going to focus on the people. And what I find is that when I'm spending time with incredible, inspiring people who encourage me to think bigger, who aren't holding me back, who aren't telling me that I can't do those things, when I spend time with people who are lifting me up and driving me forward, I have the best journeys and reach the most brilliant destinations. So that's what I would encourage people to really focus on, is the people that you're going to surround yourself with on that journey are going to be the ones that define where you.
So, what do you think, like, the 3 traits that many successful entrepreneurs have in common is why they are successful?
I'm going to try to give you some non-obvious ones. One non-obvious trait of highly successful people is paranoia, which is a very funny one to hear. But I have generally found that the most successful people in the world have a deep-seated paranoia about losing it all. And that has been something that has consistently driven them to continue punching the clock and to continue showing up. And it's interesting, and it goes to the point we said earlier about never really feeling like you figured it all out, always having that self-doubt and feeling that imposter syndrome. I think of it as every single day you start at zero. Whether you have $100 million or whether you have $0, every single day you have to show up and do your job, whatever that job is. And having that degree of healthy paranoia is really helpful because it reminds you of that fact that every day you have to go out and you have to go and do your thing. It's like the old parable of the lion and the gazelle, right? Like the gazelle wakes up every single morning and it has to run in order to avoid getting eaten by the lion. The lion wakes up every morning and it has to run in order to not starve. It has to go find a gazelle. And the whole point is whether you're the lion or the gazelle, every single morning you better be running. And I really feel that way about highly successful people, is that they understand that every morning they need to be running. And for a lot of them, it's they're running towards a purpose. So they're driven intrinsically by this desire to keep building. And that is what allows them to be both successful and also fulfilled and quite happy along the way of doing that.
Hello, Sahil Bhaiya. What are the top 3 learnings that you have learned from your mother?
Let's see, storytelling is the most important skill in life, would be number one. And I found this through my mother and now seen it time and time again in my life and in my career, that the ability to take in data that seems disparate and create a compelling narrative and story is something that will serve you in every single area of your life. It serves you in your relationships and how you interact with people and build connection. It serves you in your career and how you tell the story about who you are as a person and why you fit into whatever job you're applying for. It serves you as an entrepreneur when you're going to raise money and you need to tell the story of your company. All of those things are grounded in storytelling as a meta skill. And it's a skill that isn't taught in schools. There's no storytelling class. You're told you're supposed to take engineering classes and math, and I've never used the Pythagorean theorem in my entire life, but I have to tell stories on a daily basis. But for some reason, school doesn't teach it. So you need to find a way to learn and embrace storytelling as a meta skill. The second one would be to really focus on people. People and relationships are how you are going to achieve the things you want in life. Sitting alone in a room and making $1 billion is the loneliest and worst life you can possibly imagine. Give me $100,000 and a group of incredible friends over $100 million sitting on a yacht by myself any day of the week. And I think that seeing that and how my parents have lived their life has been really informative for me and what I want to go do and how I want to pursue my life. I know way too many ultra rich and super miserable people, and I have no desire to be one of them ever. And knowing that now is a really important lesson and something that I need to embrace. And then the third one is to push yourself, to hold yourself to high standards, both internally and externally, and how you interact with people and within yourself. I mentioned that earlier, the lesson of understanding your potential and also how you're delivering against that potential at all times, and the need to hold yourself to account and to scrub away those limiting beliefs that are actually holding you back from achieving the things that you are really capable of.
So, in India, people's parents have high expectations of them becoming a doctor or a lawyer or a chartered accountant. And I'm sure there might have been some expectation like that. Or if it wasn't so, how do you feel looking at Sahil with this India trip? How does this entire experience feel?
I don't want to cry, but it feels amazing.
Awesome. What about you?
I feel very proud that Sahil's becoming the person he wants to be.
Awesome. Huge round of applause for his parents, please. So, Sahil, do you know what the word bhaiya means? What he addressed you as?
No.
Okay, so bhaiya means elder brother. And now you're officially the elder
I did know
brother for
that.
all
I
of
did know
India.
that. Yeah.
So, Sahil, as we wrap up, I think my final question to you is that even when I met you about 2 years ago, you were so passionate about India. When I spoke to you about Delhi and the trends and what's happening in the entire creator economy, I saw your eyes swell up with pride. So what keeps you excited about India, and what do you really want to do here?
I think it's impossible to visit India and not feel excited about the future. There's so many young people that are so excited to grow and to learn and to improve themselves in some tiny way. And that is just such a unique feature of the country. I've traveled all over the world, and I've never found a place like India in that regard. And that just that holds a whole lot of potential for what the future looks like of the country. And what I want to do here is I want to be a part of that. I want to experience that. I want to hopefully help some people on that journey, create those chain reactions, leave those positive ripples out there so that people can make those tiny positive changes that do have these long-lasting compounding effects in how they live. And if I can be that tiny spark for a few people, for tens of people, for millions of people, that seems like an incredible mission and goal for life.
No, awesome. I'm really excited about the content that you create and what it'll do to the millions of young people who are watching YouTube online. But just a huge round of applause for Sahil before he leaves. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for coming here.